This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast and to be continuing to listen to the show if you are a returning listener. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you all to subscribe to the podcast so you always get those alerts and notifications on your phone, on your laptop, on whatever device you might be listening to this on. Again, you want to subscribe to the podcast so you get those alerts and notifications, and you know when we drop a new episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. Again, you want to subscribe to the podcast on whatever device or application you are listening to this on so you can get those alerts and notifications and be one of the first people to listen to a new episode when we release one here at the GSMC Sports Podcast. Also, do not forget to leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review in general if you are enjoying the content that we are distributing to you guys, if you're enjoying the discussion points, if you're just enjoying the show in general. If you could leave us a 5-star review or a positive review, that would be awesome. It would give us a big boost of confidence, and it would let us know that you guys are enjoying the content and discussion points that we are talking about here on the show. Also, finally, do not forget to also follow us on all social media platforms. We would love to interact with you guys more on there. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can primarily follow us. Again, we can talk about sports, we can talk about the show, we can talk about really anything you guys want over there on social media. So again, if you would follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, that would be awesome, and we would love to interact with you guys more on there. Again, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I hope wherever you are and however you may be listening, you and your family are happy and healthy during these extremely trying times in the world today. We have an absolutely packed show for you all. Of course, at the end of the episode, I'm going to do what I usually do every Sunday episode, which is give you my prediction for each and every NFL game starting tomorrow when you're listening to this. Starting today when you listen to this around, of course, the 1 o'clock games. I'll be breaking down each and every one of those games for you guys, who I have winning, who I have losing, and why. We'll get into all that stuff towards the end of the episode. I also want to talk about Trevor Lawrence and who's going to win those sweepstakes. And I want to play a little bit of a game with some of the teams that have younger quarterbacks, some teams that have older quarterbacks, some of the teams that just have questionable quarterback play in general. Would you give up on your guy for Trevor Lawrence? Trevor Lawrence obviously coming off a huge win against the Miami Hurricanes tonight when I'm recording this. He completely blew them out, completely dismantled the number 7 team in the country. Trevor Lawrence is, I think, the best quarterback prospect I've ever watched. I think he's ahead of Andrew Luck. He's also ahead of guys like Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa as well. So we're going to get into all that as well towards the end of the episode as well. I want to start off, though, with the NBA Finals. So the NBA Finals is not over. I could have been talking about in this episode, the first segment could have been the LA Lakers, NBA champions, for I don't even know what is it, the 17th time, or 17th time, or 18th time? Or no, that's the Celtics, so I need 18. I'm not even sure how many championships the LA Lakers have, but it would have been LeBron James' 4th ring, and the first discussion would have been, what does this ring mean for the Lakers? LeBron, is he better than Jordan? All that, but instead, we are talking about a LA Laker loss. They played in the Mamba uniforms, and they lost for the first time to the Miami Heat. They've obviously lost in the series before, but the first time losing in those Mamba jerseys. I believe, what were they? They were 12-0, and I think they were 5-0 in the playoffs when wearing them. Obviously, they've lost to the Miami Heat 111-108. For the Lakers, you take this stat line. This is what I'm going to talk about with this game later on in the episode, later on in this segment, is that the LA Lakers, when you read the box score from start to finish, it sounds like a Laker blowout win. is what it sounds like. But the fact that the Heat even survived a game like this from LeBron James and Anthony Davis and guys like KCP is absolutely incredible, which is why I am skeptical to pick the Lakers tonight when you're listening to this at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time for Game 6 of the NBA Finals. And the biggest game of the season, obviously, by far for both teams. But back to the game, what was that? Game 5, where the Heat survived and forced a Game 6. Anthony Davis had 28, 12, and 3, 9 of 15 from the field, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 2 of 5 from 3, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Only 2 turnovers for Anthony Davis. LeBron James in 41 minutes had 40 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, 15 of 21 from the field, 4 of 6 from the free throw line. This is the big stat here. 6 of 9 from 3, 3 steals, and just 4 turnovers. A number a little bit down than what he's had for the other games that they've been playing. He's had some games, 5, 6 turnovers. I believe in Game 3 he had 8 turnovers. Just 4 turnovers for LeBron James, but the big thing for him was that he was shooting the lights out of the ball. He hit multiple threes from around the logo range, stuff that we see Damian Lillard, Steph Curry do, not necessarily LeBron James. And again, to shoot 6 of 9 from the 3 was incredible. Also, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has had 16 points in that game as well. He was really the main Laker who was shooting the lights out of the ball. Markieff Morris has been a guy that's been really, really good for them all series. He was not in Game 5. He had 0 points. Caruso with only 3. Kuzma with only 7. But KCP with 16 points and shooting 3 of 8 from 3 was the best 3-point shooter besides LeBron James, of course. Danny Green with 8 points as well. We'll get to him and missing his shot, of course, at the end of the game. We'll get into all that. For the Heat, though, you look at this stat line and you think, well, we probably... I don't know. Here's the thing, right? So Crowder gets 11, which is about his average, right? Hero gets 12, which is below his average. Bam gets 13, which is way below his average. K-Nunn gets 14, above his average. Iguodala 0, below his average. So it was just a weird game for the Miami Heat in general. The guys that usually step up didn't necessarily, and the guys who have actually been struggling a little bit in this series are the ones, role player-wise, that were helping the Miami Heat. Of course, everyone's going to talk about Jimmy Butler's masterful performance once again. 35, 12, and 11, 1 of 3 from 3, 12 of 12 from the free throw line, 11 of 19 from the field in general. 5 steals, a block, only 3 turnovers to his, 13 assists? Or 11 assists. Again, 35, 12, and 11 for Jimmy Butler. Only sat 48 seconds of the game. So played 47 minutes and only sat 14 seconds. I believe that became... I think that was either in between the first and second quarter or at some point in the second quarter he sat for under a minute, 48 seconds, and they brought him back in. Again, the usual stat line for the Miami Heat is, of course, Jimmy Butler having a great game, Tyler Hero having at least 16, 17 points, and Bam Adebayo hopefully getting you 20 and 10. Those two things don't happen, and you look at the Lakers stat line and you hear 40 points from LeBron, and you hear 28 from AD, and you hear 16 for KCP, and it sounds like an LA Laker blowout. Seriously, when LeBron James has a game like this, when LeBron James' three-point is falling, I mean... He's quite literally the most unstoppable player in NBA history when he's having a game where he can shoot 6 of 9 from 3 and not just hit threes, at the 3-point line, but also from the logo, which is incredible. When you're facing LeBron James, and of course the LA Lakers are in a lot of pick and roll between him and Anthony Davis, and you're going under LeBron James screens because, again, he's not considered a plus shooter. But when he is hitting those and you can't even go underneath LeBron screens, then you're in trouble because if you go above a LeBron screen, he can drive to the hoop. And if you go below, he can shoot the 3. That's what quite literally makes LeBron James so dangerous and so unstoppable when he's hitting 3-pointers like that. Of course, the Miami Heat survived it thanks to Jimmy Butler's masterful performance. Also, Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson had a game that we've seen in the regular season time and time again, came to the playoffs, and I think, not necessarily through fault of his own, I don't think he's necessarily been in a shooting slump. I think that defenses have clearly made him a priority. I think the number one priority for defenses is stopping Jimmy Butler and Bam, but they clearly put one of their fastest perimeter defenders to just chase Duncan Robinson around all game. I mean, Duncan Robinson moves like a Golden State Warriors shooting guard. He moves like Klay Thompson. He's always moving without the basketball, always going off, dribble handoffs, dribble screens, trying to get an open 3-point shot. And he took a lot of contested ones, actually, which is why I think this game was so special for not just Jimmy Butler, who I will get into, but Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson, this is the best game of his life, obviously 100%, scoring 26 points in an NBA Finals game coming from D3 Williams College to Michigan to the NBA. What a great success story. But we've seen this time and time again in the regular season where he hits 5, 6, 7, 8 threes occasionally in games, and he had 7 threes in this game in the NBA Finals. And again, every single round of the playoffs. Maybe not necessarily the Indiana Pacers series in the first round, but definitely the Milwaukee series and definitely the Boston series and, of course, the Lakers series as well. Those teams have made it a priority on defense to stop Duncan Robinson, not give him easy looks. And Duncan Robinson, who is still a young player, and this is really his first full season in the NBA. He was technically in the NBA last year. He went back and forth between the G League and the Miami Heat. I think only played in 3 or 5 games, didn't start any of them. And now this year he started every game for the Miami Heat, every game in their playoff run, every game for the NBA Finals. For him to finally have a breakout game and get you 26 points is absolutely incredible. Pair that with Jimmy Butler's 35-point triple-double, which I would argue is almost a better performance than his 40-point triple-double in Game 3 due to the circumstances, due to the minutes, due to the elimination game factor. I think this game was actually an overall better game. Also, when you factor in the 5 steals that Jimmy Butler had towards the end of the game, he had some really clutch steals. There's the awesome video of him getting fouled to take the free throws for the lead, and he's literally hunching over the side area or right underneath the basket, like kind of that barrier that would separate him and the fans. Obviously, no fans, but he was kind of leaning on that, absolutely exhausted. Again, played 47 minutes, only sat 48 seconds of the game, and he was quite literally the reason why the Miami Heat won the game. Him, and obviously coupled with Duncan Robinson, came down to the last shot of the game. LeBron James missed a 3. There was a lot of other factors. I'll probably talk about that either later on in this segment or the next segment because I do want to focus on the Miami Heat for this one. Because an article came out by the Players Tribune. I believe it was Gary Payton who came out and wrote the article. Gary Payton, obviously the glove, one of the all-time greatest defensive players of all time, one of the greatest just point guards in general of all time as well, came out and had a whole article, the Players Tribune, sort of as like a rally call for the Miami Heat, right? Going in, they were down 3-1. This was obviously before the game. It ends with this, right? It ends with Gary Payton, who obviously played for the Miami Heat, won a championship with the Miami Heat in 2006. Obviously, you know him from his Seattle Supersonic days as well. I think he played for the LA Lakers as well to a certain standpoint, maybe with Shaq and Kobe. And the message that he says is, I got one message. Everyone doubts you right now. Everyone's writing you off. They're getting ready to crown them other guys. They're shining up for that trophy for them. They've got that champagne on ice, but they forgot about one thing. Y'all are still here. Y'all are still here. Y'all belong here. Next 3 games are for the culture. They forgot about the Miami bleeping Heat. And that was from Gary Payton. And of course, the Heat really responded to that message, including Jimmy Butler, of course, with a 35-point triple-double going at LeBron James. And this is the thing, because the game before that, obviously, 2 games ago, Jimmy Butler had the 40-point triple-double. As an adjustment, the LA Lakers decided to put Defensive Player of the Year candidate and I think probably the best overall defensive player in the game, at least one of them, Anthony Davis, on Jimmy Butler the entire game, and they guarded him like Ben Simmons, is essentially what they did. They pretty much guarded him like Ben Simmons, stepped away from him and told him, you know what, shoot your 3-point shots, you're not getting anything in the paint. It worked. Obviously, the LA Lakers won that game. Now, transitioning to this game, the adjustment that Eric Spoelstra got was we need to set multiple picks on multiple guys, and it was their guards who were setting those picks in sort of this horn formation at the top of the key. It was Hero and Duncan Robinson who would kind of blitz where Jimmy Butler's area was, double pick, double screen the area, get AD off him, and either the Miami Heat would get a mismatch or somebody would overcommit and they would get an open shooter. And a lot of times Duncan Robinson was that open shooter, which led to 26 points. Absolutely masterful adjustment by Coach Eric Spoelstra to get Anthony Davis off of him at that as well as finding up open lanes for a guy like Duncan Robinson who's been struggling to find open shots all playoffs. So it's kind of killing 2 birds with one adjustment, one stone. It's going to be interesting to see what Frank Vogel comes with tonight when you're listening to this. What does Eric Spoelstra come with tonight? But I want to talk about Jimmy Butler for the rest of this segment and as well as these other guys. So you're telling me the year 2020, craziness, of course. And if you were to tell me that the craziest, or not, it wouldn't be the craziest thing that happened in the 2020 sports world, I'm not sure. But if you had told me that it ends with the Miami Heat coming back 3-1 against the LA Lakers, I wouldn't even be surprised. That's how crazy 2020 has been. But the question is, can the Miami Heat actually pull this off? Can the Miami Heat come back down 3-1 like LeBron James did in 2016 against the Golden State Warriors? Can he do that to LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the LA Lakers? And I would tell you it all comes down to tonight, between the LA Lakers and the Miami Heat, Game 6. Because again, Game 5, the closeout game is always the hardest game you're going to win if you're the Lakers, right? This Miami Heat team is fierce, they're feisty, they're hungry, they're not scared of anybody. We've told you all, the cliches, everything about, Heat culture, Gary Payton telling you you're still here these next 3 games about the culture. They forgot about the Miami bleeping Heat, right? Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, guts, all of this stuff, right? You know about all this. So, of course, the elimination game when the backs are against the wall of the Miami Heat, Jimmy likes it when he's backs against the wall. Erik Spoelstra embraces challenges, embraces having to make adjustments, embraces being down 3-1, right? So does Pat Riley, of course, as well, the entire Miami Heat organization. When they're down 3-1 like this, can they come back and win the NBA Finals? And, of course, they've gotten Game 5 now. Now Game 6 is tonight. The LA Lakers cannot, I repeat, cannot let this go to a Game 7. Because if this goes to a 7th game and you give the Miami Heat momentum, back-to-back wins, they would have won 3 out of the last 4 games in the series. The LA Lakers are in serious trouble. The pressure will be mounting. I mean, for them to come out on Friday, right, and wear the Kobe Black Mamba jerseys, they're undefeated, going for their championship in memory of Kobe Bryant. For them to come out there and get kind of shell-shocked by the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler, I think that's going to hurt the confidence of some of these Laker guys, some of these guys like Markieff Morris, Caruso, Danny Green, all these guys, right? Except LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And I want to throw KCP in there too because he's had an absolutely phenomenal series as well, right? So I think it might have hurt their confidence, might be a little bit shell-shocked. If they do not win tonight and this goes to a 7th game, the LA Lakers are in real trouble. They're in real trouble now. They need to close this out tonight. Lakers in 6. They got to end this. They got to win the game. Just put the Miami Heat to bed. Do not even risk going to a Game 7. You have to keep your foot on the gas the entire game. Even if there is a moment where the Lakers go up 10 or 12, you got to keep going. Go up 20. Don't let the Heat hang around because in the fourth quarter, they have never been outscored. I repeat that. In the fourth quarter of these NBA Finals, the Miami Heat have never been outscored in the fourth quarter. They've either tied or they've had more points than the opponent, including in the games they've lost in this series as well. So you cannot let them hang around. You have to put them to bed. Can the Lakers do it 100%? But can the Heat really pull this off is the interesting question. Because the 2 games they've won, it's taken Jimmy Butler to have a minimum of a 35-point triple-double. Can Jimmy Butler do this game in, game out? I'm not sure. The reason why I don't give you a confirmed yes is because he hasn't done this in back-to-back games. Obviously, after the 40-point triple-double 2 games ago, he came out with a great game, but not enough for the Miami Heat to win, which was a 35-point-plus triple-double. And then he responds in last night's game and gives you that 35-point triple-double. The question is, can he do this again tonight on Sunday? And if needed, do it again on Tuesday for a Game 7. I don't know. I think Jimmy Butler is capable of doing that. I don't know if that's necessarily his mentality. His mentality with the Miami Heat all year has been way more passive, not being this big offensive threat, trying to get other guys involved, trying to get Duncan Robinson involved, Tyler Hero involved, Bam Adebayo. And that's what he did in game, 4 after the 40-point triple-double. He was very passive, trying to get other guys involved, and it didn't work. So I think Jimmy knows he needs to be assertive in order for this team to win night in, night out. He also needs, I think, more from Hero and Bam. Hero only getting 12 points cannot happen. He needs to get at least 17. He needs to shoot better from 3. I expect a big game for him today on Sunday because I think the Lakers are going to really do everything they can to stop Jimmy and then also really, really focus in on Duncan Robinson again and make somebody else beat you. Hero and Bam need to be those guys. I think they need more from them. But I do think Jimmy Butler needs to put on a performance like that almost each and every night if the Heat want to beat the LA Lakers. Can he do it? Yes. Will he have that mentality? That is the question. And I'm not trying to say that if Jimmy has that mentality that he's going to go out there and get it. He will. Again, he played 47 minutes, was absolutely exhausted. But even in just that aggressiveness about Jimmy and getting his own shot opens up opportunities for guys like Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero. So either way, in my opinion, that aggressive mentality is good for Jimmy Butler. Now, if the Heat pull it off tonight on Sunday, do I like them in Game 7? I do. I think if the Heat do force a Game 7 and win 3 out of the 4 games in this series, and they go into a Game 7 tied 3-3 with the Lakers, I would predict the Miami Heat to win that game. All the momentum, all the guts, all that stuff. The question is, can they get it done tonight for Game 7? That is the big question. Again, I'm looking for an aggressive Jimmy Butler. I'm looking for more adjustments by Erik Spoelstra. I don't think he's going to run out there with the same game plan because I think Frank Vogel is a good enough coach. We'll have some adjustments for sort of that horn formation that they were running with those double picks with the guards from Hero and Robinson up top. I think they're going to try to find another way to get the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hands. Would not surprise me if they doubled him a majority of the game. They haven't tried that yet. The Lakers is that at least. I don't know if that's the right strategy because there's a lot of guys on this Miami Heat team that can make plays if you leave them open. Crowder has shooting, I believe, from a 35% clip from 3 right now. Hero, of course, has shown great showings, prowess, had a 37-point game against the Boston Celtics. Duncan Robinson just killed you with 26, and we know what Bam can do when he's getting going as well. So I don't know if doubling Jimmy Butler is the right call if you're the LA Lakers, But either way, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out going forward in this great NBA Finals. I'm glad the series is extended. I'm glad it didn't end in 5. Even if it ends in 6, we got an extended series, a great series. I don't know who I like to win tonight. It's a toss-up game in my opinion. The Lakers need to step up. They need to win this game. They cannot afford to lose this game and go to a Game 7 against the Miami Heat. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this segment, I want to talk about the Lakers side of this game. Was this one of LeBron James' best performances, and should he have passed it to Danny Green on the final play? We'll get into all that good stuff and potentially start talking some NFL right after this short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the GSMC Sports Podcast. If you are a returning listener, we really do appreciate it. I just finished talking about the Miami Heat side of their big Game 5 victory, pushing it to a Game 6, and I want to focus for at least the better part of this segment about the LA Lakers and what can they do the next game to make sure that they end this series in 6. Because again, I really do believe the LA Lakers cannot afford to go to a 7th game against the Miami Heat, not against this Miami Heat team. With that good of a coach, that good of an organization, and I think that good of a player, Jimmy Butler, I do want to talk about maybe at the end of the segment if we do have time. I do want to kind of almost revisit my top 10 players. Is Jimmy Butler a top 10 player? Maybe we'll talk about that at the end of the segment if we have time. But coming from the LA Lakers side, I'm struggling to find reasons on how they lost this game because there is nobody to blame but themselves. There was no, Frank Vogel said there were some late calls that were questionable. The last 2-minute report revealed that those calls were the right calls, so there's no referee excuse. LeBron James was obviously incredible at 40 points, 6 of 9 from 3. Nothing you can blame on LeBron James there. And of course, Anthony Davis with the incredible 28 and 12 as well, playing pretty hurt too. He hurt his heel at some point. I think he banged it against somebody while going up for a rebound. He was hurt for a bit. It came back, looked okay. And then he said Andre Iguodala, I think maybe the hit heels again or something, and they re-aggravated it. I don't know. He's going to play next game. Obviously, he's listed as probable. He's definitely going to play. Is he 100% now? That's the question. Jimmy Butler is obviously, not 100%. He's doing all this on a bad ankle. Bam Adebayo not 100%. There's been a lot of knick-knack injuries during this entire series. Some really serious injuries as well if you consider Goran Dragic, right? And even Bam Adebayo, who missed 2 games of the series. But the real question is why did the Lakers lose this game? And the immediate question that everybody goes to is Danny Green missed the 3, right? Danny Green had a wide-open 3 to take the lead in the game, probably seal it off unless Jimmy Butler had another crazy game tie or game-winning shot, right? LeBron James drives, goes to his right, is quadruple teams by 4 different guys. I'm pretty sure it was Bam, Butler, Iguodala, and Duncan Robinson were all just standing around him. LeBron with a nice sort of back pass to Danny Green, who shoots, I believe, 45% in NBA Finals. He's a top 5 NBA Finals shooter all time, one of the best three-point shooters of all time. Shoots a 3 from the top of the key, front rims it, does not get it. Markieff Morris gets a quick offensive rebound because everybody's crowding LeBron James, and then turns the ball over trying to pass the ball to Anthony Davis, who I believe was kind of playing a little bit hurt. Everyone's kind of clowning Markieff Morris for that pass. That was the right play. Anthony Davis had inside leverage, I believe, on Jay Crowder. It was a bad pass for sure, but I think if Anthony Davis wasn't playing a little bit bagged up, I don't think he had that lift to jump up and go get that ball almost, or that, like, he didn't really kind of reach for it, just kind of flew out of bounds on Markieff, and then obviously we go on the other end, Tyler Hero hits 2-3 free throws, they don't hit the game-winning, or the game-tying three, LeBron misses the game-tying three, and that's the game. So, of course, everybody points to Danny Green. Should he have hit that shot? 100%. Should he be getting death threats because he missed that shot? Absolutely not, right? Guys are going to miss shots, open shots. It's happened before. I mean, people immediately go to LeBron James and say, you need to take that shot, right? You're the guy. Skip Bayless, you're the guy. You're not MJ. You need to take that shot. You don't have that killer instinct, that Mamba mentality, whatever, right? LeBron James had a 40-point near triple-double, 40 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, shot 6 of 9 from 3. He was absolutely going to take that shot until he was like, oh my God, I'm being quadruple teamed. I should find an open guy. And if you want to say that he shouldn't have passed to Danny Green, you should have passed to somebody else, I could get that. The guy I would have loved to see get the ball for the Lakers would have been Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think he hits that three. Danny Green has not been good for the LA Lakers all season. But at the end of the day, he's a 2 or 3-time NBA champion, at least 2, one with the Spurs, one with the Raptors. One of the best three-point shooters of all time. One of the best clutch three-point shooters of all time. LeBron knows this because he went against him in the Eastern Conference, in the NBA Finals when he was in San Antonio on the Spurs, and he was killing people from three all the damn time, right? Including the Miami Heat when he was with them. And the thing is, again, 45% three-point shooter in NBA Finals history, top 5 Finals shooter ever. You live with that shot. That's the shot you take. You live and die with one of your clutchest players on your team. He missed the shot. Oh, well. But that's not the main reason why the LA Lakers won the game. There's 48 minutes in the game. Of course, it was back and forth. The Lakers had no response to Eric Spoelstra's adjustments with the horn formation. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't stop Duncan Robinson all night. And when that happens, you can't expect to win the game when Duncan Robinson gets 26 points and you allow another 35-plus point triple-double to Jimmy Butler. Again, good defense on Bam, good defense on Hero, but it was the other guys, of course. It's weird because I thought the Lakers really blew an opportunity because LeBron James doesn't have games like this often. He just doesn't. He does have great games often. He does have 30-point triple-doubles. I don't want to necessarily say often, but kind of often, kind of a crazy thing to say, right? He does them pretty regularly. And you get a shooting night from LeBron James where he hits 6 of 9 from 3. Those don't happen often. There are games in the finals, there are games, period, where LeBron James has his three-point shot falling, and that's usually when the best games of his career start to happen, right? 63-point game in Boston, all those games against Golden State in the finals coming back down 3-1, the Game 5 that everybody knows, the Game 7 that everybody knows. Those were games when LeBron James was hitting his three-point shots, right? And his shot was falling, and he wasn't just driving and kicking or driving and getting fouled or layups or dunks, right? His game expanded beyond that for those games. So I think the Lakers wasted an opportunity because I don't know if that performance is replicable from LeBron James. I just don't. Do I think the stat line is? Potentially. Do I think the way he did it is? Not necessarily. I would be very surprised if we saw another game in this series in the next 2 games, maybe even just tonight, if LeBron James had another three-point shooting night like that, where he's hitting, 6 of 9 or 7 of 10. Right? I don't see LeBron James hitting 6 3-pointers again in this series. So for that to happen, plus for AD to get his usual 28 and 12, and for KCP to have an above-average game for him, for the Heat to still survive is concerning for the LA Lakers. Who am I blaming that game on? I'm blaming it on Frank Vogel. I don't blame it on LeBron James for a 40-point year triple-double. I don't blame it on LeBron James. I'm not even necessarily blaming it on Danny Green for missing the 3 or Markieff Morris for turning it over late in the ballgame. And I'm not blaming it on Anthony Davis for not getting at least 30 points. He did enough to win the game. Frank Vogel did not make enough adjustments in-game to compete with Eric Spoelstra. It was a complete coaching mismatch from start to finish. The Heat were pretty much in control. The way that the Lakers came into this game is we're going to put AD on Butler again because that worked last game. Eric Spoelstra obviously came up with a solution, and the difference between Eric Spoelstra and Frank Vogel, in my opinion, is that Frank Vogel makes adjustments for the next game. Eric Spoelstra has already thought of and made adjustments to Frank Vogel's adjustments. He takes it to another level. He's playing like 4D alien chess. That's the type of stuff Eric Spoelstra does. Frank Vogel doesn't do that. So whatever Frank Vogel has come up with to stop, the horn sequence that the Miami Heat kind of run to free up Butler and get him on mismatches, Eric Spoelstra has already either thought of a way that he believes will beat Frank Vogel's adjustment. So, I think it's a complete coaching mismatch. I would blame Frank Vogel. The pressure on the Lakers to win that game was huge, to wear the Black Mamba jerseys. They're undefeated in those. To win a championship in 5 like that, like they've won the entire series, have been pretty much dominating at least, 3 of the games. One of the games they completely dominated. 2 other ones they pulled out close victories. For them to lose that game, I would be shell-shocked if I were the Lakers. I'd be a little bit embarrassed as well. So either, in my opinion, the Lakers are going to come out and they're going to respond in two ways. One, I think the Lakers are going to look great tonight. Either way, I think the Lakers are going to look good tonight. I do not expect a Miami Heat blowout. Either way, I believe this game is going to be... If this game is close, I like the Heat. If the game isn't close, I think the Lakers will win. There's no way the Heat blow out the Lakers. If the Lakers are going to come out and look great and I think dominate the Heat from start to finish and put this series to bed, one, or two, they're going to come out like they did in the other two games where the Heat won and let the Heat hang around or maybe even lead a majority of the game like they did last game, let Jimmy Butler do his thing, and then the Lakers are in real trouble at the end of the game. Again, I expect a close game tonight. Who do I like to win? I'm not necessarily sure at this point. I told you in my last episode that I thought that the Heat were going to win on Friday and then, lose Game 6, but I didn't think the Heat would win the way that they did. I didn't think Jimmy Butler would have a 35-point triple-double, and I didn't think the Heat would survive the LeBron James 3-point shooting game that seems to come each and every series, right? So that's something I didn't necessarily expect. Need more from Bam Adebayo. If you're Miami, need more from Tyler Hero. Quickly, for the last couple minutes or so, I do want to transition back to the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. What Jimmy Butler is doing right now reminds me a lot of what Dwayne Wade did in 2006 after they were down 0-2 to the Dallas Mavericks. Dwayne Wade pretty much averaged 38 or 39 or maybe even 40 points. The rest of the series won 4 straight games, and the Miami Heat were NBA champions in 2006. I'm not saying that Jimmy Butler's going to do that, but since they've gone down 0-2, Jimmy Butler is pretty much averaging, a mid-30-point triple-double throughout the entire series. I think either way, this is one of the greatest final performances of all time by a player, Jimmy Butler. I think it is the best finals performance by somebody who isn't considered a top end talent, a all-time talent. Dwayne Wade is considered, I believe, an all-time talented player, an all-time player in general. I don't think Jimmy Butler gets that love and recognition. And what's crazy is I kind of envision Jimmy Butler almost as a Gary Payton type player, right? As one of those guys who's a scrapper, defender, can do everything. And again, but Jimmy Butler to have 5 steals as well in the triple-double, absolutely insane. And Jimmy Butler, you have to remember, is doing all of this, averaging a near 30, mid-30, a 33 to, I think he's averaging a 31 to 33-point triple-double right now, or close to it, right? On a bad ankle, while also guarding LeBron James pretty much each and every possession for the Miami Heat, something that I don't think we've ever really seen before. For a guy to do that and also guard the best player, it's Jordan-esque. And it's why, even if Jimmy Butler doesn't pull this off, I want to make the argument that Jimmy Butler should win Finals MVP. Now, LeBron James has been incredible this series, so is Anthony Davis. But the best player in this series for a lot of the games has been Jimmy Butler. There have been 2 games where Jimmy Butler has absolutely outplayed LeBron James, the most recent game and as well as Game 3. There have been other games as well where Jimmy Butler's been the best player on the court and the Heat have lost. I would my Finals MVP vote would be for Jimmy Butler despite the loss. Even if they lost the series, right? It was sort of a similar conversation to when LeBron was incredible, will lose to Golden State without Kyrie and Kevin Love, right? Remember that series where they were hurt? Again, no Jimmy Butler, no Goran Dragic for the series for Jimmy. Bam Adebayo is clearly playing at probably 50%, right? He's not having a great series. Hero's kind of stalling in this series in comparison to his series before. He's kind of hit the rookie wall a little bit here. He's struggling with the Lakers' defensive packages. And, of course, Duncan Robinson as well, but Kendrick Nunn, right? All these guys that aren't these big names, and Jimmy Butler's the one carrying them, and they forced a Game 6 of the NBA Finals against the big, bad LA Lakers with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So either way, I think Jimmy Butler should win Finals MVP, and I think either way now, it's a unanimous decision that Jimmy Butler is a top 10 player in the NBA, and I'm starting to consider him top 5 to 7. Seriously. We've never seen Jimmy on this stage, of course. We saw him in, I think, second-round playoff series, things like that, maybe even... in the not the conference finals for the Eastern Conference Finals. I think it was his first Eastern Conference Finals this year. But we've seen him in the big stage of the playoffs for the Bulls, for the Timberwolves, for the 76ers. But we've never seen him on this NBA Finals stage. And for him to have taken that step up and again average, pretty much a 31-point triple-double and guard LeBron James each and every possession and guard him well with 5 steals. He's averaging, I believe, 3.5 steals a game this series. Stuff like that is absolutely unheard of. One of the greatest final performances of all time. Period, blank, whatever you want to say. I think Jimmy Butler's a top 10 player in the NBA now. I think officially I'd rather have Jimmy Butler than James Harden. There's a lot of guys now in this league where I'm looking at Jimmy Butler and I'm going, he's just as good as them. He's right up there with Damian Lillard in my opinion. Damian Lillard does the same stuff in the clutch with the shooting, different type of players, but he's right up there. He's in that Damian Lillard tier for me. Jimmy Butler is not You cannot consider this Miami Heat team superstarless, right? That's what everybody says. Oh, this Heat team reminds them of Detroit. There's no superstar. Kevin McHale had a quote that you can't give a guy the ball and say, go get us a bucket, right, on this team, which is absolutely atrociously bad take, right? Jimmy Butler is obviously that guy. Jimmy Butler is a superstar. This is not a superstarless team. Jimmy Butler is a top 7 player in the NBA. Can he get it done in Game 6 and force a Game 7? Man, the fact that Jimmy Butler has forced a Game 6 is already all-time great stuff. Imagine if he forces a Game 7, has another performance like that. I cannot absolutely wait to watch this Game 6 matchup between the Miami Heat and LA Lakers, who I like. Again, I don't really want to give a prediction. It's a toss-on game for me. As the game gets down to the wire and the game is closer, I trust the Miami Heat to close a little bit more than the Lakers. But let me know what you guys think in this series. I don't know who's going to win this game. I don't really have a prediction. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this segment, I do want to play that game I was talking about with your starting quarterback of your favorite team. I'm going to go through each and every NFL team, and I should say if they have the number 1 overall pick, would I give up on their guy and go for Trevor Lawrence if they have the number 1 overall pick? We'll do that with each and every NFL team. And if we have time, we'll also talk about the Thursday night game between the Bears and the Buccaneers. The Bears upset the Buccaneers. I do want to talk about that in this episode. If we have time, we'll also talk about that. And don't forget to stick around for the end of the episode for the final segment. I will still be predicting each and every NFL game for Sunday's game, as well as the Monday night game and potentially Tuesday night game we have as well. We'll get into all that good stuff right after this short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the GSMC Sports Podcast. We really do appreciate it here at the GSMC Sports Podcast team. I just finished talking about sort of the Los Angeles Lakers side of that NBA Finals game that they blew, of course. Not necessarily blew the lead. The Heat were pretty much in control for a majority of the game. They didn't get, they blew their chance to end it in 5. So it's going to a Game 6 tonight. Who do I like? I'm not really sure. I couldn't really give you a straight prediction on who I thought would win this game. In my opinion, I think there's no way that the Heat would blow out the Los Angeles Lakers. But I think as the game gets sort of towards the end of the game, in the fourth quarter, down to the wire, everything like that, I start to really question if the Los Angeles Lakers can close. I trust the Heat to close a little bit more than the Lakers. So if the game is still really, really close, I'm not talking close like 8 points or 6 points. I'm talking like back and forth, lead changing type of stuff like we had at the end of last game. I almost tend to lean a little bit more towards the Heat. But even a close game, if the Heat are down 5 or more, I trust the Lakers. But when it's going back and forth like that is when I really start to trust the Heat. All right, I want to transition now to the NFL and a little bit of college football, technically, I guess. Obviously, if you didn't see, I think the game of the year was supposed to be Clemson versus Miami. I'm really high on Miami this year. I thought they were great. I thought Manny Diaz was coaching up that defense. Their new offensive coordinator kind of showing off the hurry-up offense. So, to another level, a level we haven't really seen since Chip Kelly did it at Oregon. But Clemson came out and smacked Miami 42-17. I won't even talk about Miami because this segment is about Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence in that game against a top defense in the entire, college football world. number 7 team in the country. Trevor Lawrence goes 29 of 41, 292 yards, 70% completion percentage, 7 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a rushing touchdown, a quarterback rating of 154.7. Quite literally close to a perfect game as you can play. Trevor Lawrence is a special quarterback prospect. It's no surprise. You've heard me say this before. I think he's the greatest quarterback prospect I've ever seen. My rankings, personally, for greatest quarterback prospects ever in my lifetime, at least, I'm about 20 years old. So in the last 20 years, the best quarterback prospects I've seen, at least, number 1 is Trevor Lawrence for me. Number 2 is Andrew Luck. Number 3 is Tua Tagovailoa. Number 4 is Joe Burrow. Number 5 is Cam Newton. Those are the best 5 quarterback prospects I have seen where I've gone, wow, those guys are going to be special players in this league, and they're going to do some great things. Number 6 would probably be Deshaun Watson as well. I was very high on Deshaun Watson. I think he was going to be a great player, and he is. That's not necessarily great top 5 quarterback prospects ever, not top 5 quarterbacks ever, right? Just guys coming out of college in the draft that I thought, and I was like, wow, they're special. When I watch Trevor Lawrence, I've seen John Elway highlights on YouTube. I wasn't old enough to watch John Elway, but I've seen John Elway highlights on YouTube, and I've seen documentaries about him. I've seen old just footage of him in general. When I watch Trevor Lawrence, I think he's the second coming of John Elway. And a lot of people consider John Elway to be the greatest quarterback prospect of all time. I wouldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't argue that. And again, when you watch Trevor Lawrence play, and he's really starting to use his legs a little bit more. The second half of last year, he was using it a lot. In the beginning part of this year, he's been using it as well. He is a dual-threat guy. He can run. He's the perfect guy of speed that you want, of a guy who's a dual-threat quarterback but isn't necessarily looking to run more than he passes, right? He's not the traditional, running quarterback, if you want to call it. Guys like Cam, Kyler, Lamar, Russell Wilson. He's more of a guy that's just got that escapability to extend the play, but also can pick up a first down when needed. He's kind of got that Dak Prescott speed almost, sort of in that regard. So when Dak likes to run versus not running, but when he does run, good things usually happen for the Clemson Tigers. Again, Trevor Lawrence is quite literally a perfect quarterback prospect. I don't see a way that he busts unless the team that drafts him is unable to surround him with good enough pieces or injuries, everything like that. I really do believe Trevor Lawrence is that special of a player against one of the best defenses in the country. Completely tore them up, for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, and a rushing touchdown. So again, Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to win the Heisman this year. I think he's going to win the national championship this year, and I think he'll be a 2-time national champion in 3 years, only losing to probably the greatest college football team of all time, the LSU Tigers, led by Joe Burrow, and he will be the number 1 overall pick. Now, obviously, not all of these teams that I'm going to go through would have the number 1 overall pick, but in comparison to how high I think, or how high I am on Trevor Lawrence, I want to go through each and every NFL team, and I think the debate this year is stronger than others. As you remember, this has never really been a debate until Josh Rosen was kind of given up on by Arizona to take Kyler Murray. Should your team, if they get the number 1 overall pick, give up on your starting quarterback currently in order to take Trevor Lawrence? I want to go through each and every NFL team. Obviously, there's going to be teams on this like the Ravens, the Chiefs, so they're obviously not going to get the number 1 overall pick. And a lot of these teams are probably out of the Trevor Lawrence sweepstakes, but it's just a sort of a fun game where would I take your guy or would I would take Trevor Lawrence? That's how high I am on Trevor Lawrence. So let's get right into it. Team number 1, the Arizona Cardinals. If the Arizona Cardinals had a disastrous season and they got the number 1 overall pick, would I give up on Kyler Murray to take Trevor Lawrence? The answer is simply no. He's one of the few players that I would definitely not take. Not necessarily that I think Kyler Murray is better than Trevor Lawrence. I don't necessarily think so. But the offense that they got in Arizona, everything going on with their coach, everything's going great right now with them, and what's going on with Kyler Murray in Arizona. It's a great fit. Everything's going great for them. So I would not. And I think Kyler Murray plays at a high enough level where he can win you a Super Bowl. I think that's great. Carolina. If the Carolina Panthers had the number 1 overall pick in the draft, would I give up on Teddy Bridgewater to take Trevor Lawrence? 100%, absolutely. I would take Trevor Lawrence if the Carolina Panthers got that number 1 overall pick. Teddy's a good player, but again, what Trevor Lawrence does is special type of stuff you cannot teach. Teddy Bridgewater is a system quarterback. Now we get to our first team that has a legitimate shot at the number 1 overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons. And this is a very, very interesting debate because Matt Ryan has been the quarterback there forever. He has won an MVP in Atlanta. He has gone to a Super Bowl in Atlanta as well. Obviously, they blew the 28-3 lead, everything like that. Would I take Trevor Lawrence over Matt Ryan? This is a legitimate conversation. The Falcons are 0-4, potential to go 0-5 after a potential loss to Carolina today, who I just talked about. Would I do that? 100%. I would tell Matt Ryan, not necessarily to kick rocks or anything, but the Phillip Rivers treatment. You're a little bit older. We're going to go on to a younger guy. I don't know if I would keep Matt Ryan. You could maybe trade him for a pick or something like that. But if the Atlanta Falcons get the number 1 overall pick, I'm definitely taking Trevor Lawrence over their current guy. Chicago. If the Chicago Bears get the number 1 overall pick, not likely, but if they did, would I give up on Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky for Trevor Lawrence? This is an easy one, 100%. I think if the Bears got Trevor Lawrence, it'd be absolutely incredible. And, this segment also serves for should your team trade up for him, potentially if a team, that doesn't need a quarterback like the Houston Texans gets the number 1 overall pick. So if you're the Chicago Bears and you get the number 1 overall pick, definitely. The Dallas Cowboys, they're not going to get the number 1 overall pick, even though they're not a great team this year. Obviously, Dak Prescott is a good to great quarterback. He's been playing great this year. I'd still take Trevor Lawrence over Dak Prescott. I think, if you can imagine, Trevor Lawrence kind of does everything Dak Prescott does at an elite level, while Dak Prescott does a lot of those things at a good level. But I'm definitely, if I'm the Cowboys, if I had the pick between Dak or Trevor Lawrence, I'm taking Lawrence. Detroit Lions, would I give up on Stafford to go Lawrence? 100%. I think Matt Stafford's a really, really great player. I think Matt Stafford is a Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback. Would I take him over Trevor Lawrence? No, but I'm a part of the free Matthew Stafford movement. Let's get him to a team that has a real organization, a real coach, a real GM, some real talent, and we'll see what Stafford can do. Next up is the Packers. I'm not taking Trevor Lawrence over Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going for MVP this year, so I still think Aaron Rodgers is better than Trevor Lawrence. Los Angeles Rams, so I think Trevor Lawrence is better than Jared Goff, 100%. And I think I'm higher on Goff than others. I think Jared Goff is a great quarterback. I think he fits with Sean McVay really, really well. But Trevor Lawrence is a special type of player, man. So I would take him. And then Minnesota, would I give up on Kirk Cousins? 100%. I'd give up on Kirk Cousins for Trevor Lawrence. So again, the only guys so far, only teams that have quarterbacks that I wouldn't take Trevor Lawrence over right now is the Cardinals and the Packers. Then we get to the Saints, Giants, and Eagles. Saints and Giants, I would 100%. I mean, Drew Brees is getting up there and his arm's kind of shot. I would love Trevor Lawrence on that team. Same with the Giants, another team that potentially has a shot at the number 1 overall pick. Yes, Daniel Jones is young. Yes, they don't have Saquon Barkley, and they have an absolute terrible team. I don't think Joe Judge is a very good coach either. I don't know if he was necessarily the right hire. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jones turns the ball over too much, and Trevor Lawrence is too good of a prospect to pass up on. I expect if the season goes the way it's looking for the Giants and they get the number 1 overall pick, they should, John Mara, the ownership, clean house, get a new GM, take Trevor Lawrence overall, number 1 overall, and restart your franchise. Next up is Philly. This is a close one because I'm not trying to sell all my Carson Wentz stock yet. I still think he's a really, really good quarterback, so I'm going to hold off. I'm going to say that Philly has their quarterback. It's close. When I first thought about this segment, I immediately thought that about Philly because, again, Trevor Lawrence, again, special type of player. Carson Wentz, I still think is a really, really good quarterback. I still think he's an MVP, Super Bowl caliber winning quarterback. It's just, he hasn't played well this year. I'm not trying to sell all my Carson Wentz stock just yet. Then we have San Francisco. I would take Trevor Lawrence over Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a good player, not a great player. Don't necessarily know if he's Super Bowl winning, So I would, that's another close one, but I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over Jimmy Garoppolo. Next up, we have Seattle. Obviously, I'm super high on Russell Wilson. I'd rather have Russell Wilson. I'll keep that one short and sweet. I think he's a special player. Russell Wilson's the second best player in football. Then we have Tampa Bay. I'd still like Brady. I understand they lost to the Bears. I'm still taking Brady all the way. In my opinion, that's why I would take it. And then, of course, the Washington football team, a team that has a chance at the number 1 overall pick. They've already given up on Dwayne Haskins, so this is an easy yes. I would take Trevor Lawrence. So far, in the NFC, the only teams that have a quarterback, there's only 4 teams that I would say have their quarterback good enough where they wouldn't need Trevor Lawrence. And that's Tampa Bay, Seattle, Green Bay, Philly, and Arizona. So 5 teams, actually, that I believe have their quarterback situation good enough where they wouldn't need him. Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's great. You don't need Trevor Lawrence. So if they were somehow to have a disaster and get the number 1 overall pick, I would still take Lamar Jackson. Buffalo. This one is close. Would I take Josh Allen or Trevor Lawrence? I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence. Josh Allen is playing out of his mind this year. I'm not the biggest Josh Allen supporter, as you all know. I'm still not completely sold on him, though. I would still take Trevor Lawrence. I still think Josh Allen's holding Buffalo back. I think they could be even better. Cincinnati. I think Joe Burrow is good enough and has shown enough where you wouldn't need a guy like Trevor Lawrence to come in if they got the number 1 overall pick or anything like that. Joe Burrow is good enough. He's shown enough things. He's clutch. I would still take Joe Burrow over Trevor Lawrence. Not as a prospect, but in the current situation, yes. Then we have Cleveland, Denver, and Houston. Cleveland, I think I would not take... that's close. Baker Mayfield's having a great season, but I would take Trevor Lawrence. I think he's just too talented, and Baker doesn't have all those physical gifts. That's a close one, but I'm going Trevor Lawrence over Baker Mayfield. And then Denver and Houston. This is a surprise. I think Denver has their quarterback. I'm high on Drew Lock. I think he's a baby version of Patrick Mahomes, sort of a lesser version of that, a poor man's version of Patrick Mahomes. He's dealing with some injuries. The Broncos are not great right now, but when he comes back healthy, the Broncos will be a different team. I think Drew Lock's going to be a really good player. I would not take Trevor Lawrence over Drew Lock if I am the Denver Broncos. And of course, with Houston, I would obviously stay and hang on to Deshaun Watson. I think he's a special player as well. Then we have Colts and Jaguars. Both of these teams, Phillip Rivers, Gardner Minshew, if they got the number 1 overall pick, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence. Pretty easy with that one. Kansas City, Raiders, and Chargers. If I'm the Chargers and Raiders, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence, obviously, over Derek Carr. Justin Herbert has shown a lot of good stuff, but man, Trevor Lawrence is Justin Herbert's on steroids, right? Kansas City's an obvious answer. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. You don't need Trevor Lawrence. The Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa. If the Dolphins got the number 1 overall pick via Houston or via anything, would you take Trevor Lawrence? I would not. I think Tua's Drew Brees 2.0. I think you have your quarterback in Miami. Then we have the Patriots and the Steelers and the Titans. Those 3 teams, I think, would all take Trevor Lawrence. I would take Trevor Lawrence over Big Ben in his current stage in his career. I would take him over Tannehill. And I think I would take him over Cam. Cam has shown me a lot of good stuff. That's a close one. But I think if you were the Patriots, were somehow to get the number 1 overall pick, if Cam could not come back, something like that, I would take Trevor Lawrence. The final team is the New York Jets, who I believe will be the team with the number 1 overall pick. Would you give up on Sam Darnold for Trevor Lawrence? Here's the thing. Sam Darnold is somebody's franchise quarterback. I think I could see him on the Steelers. I could see him on the Rams. I could see him on the Saints. I could see him on all these teams that have older, aging quarterbacks. I could see him on the Colts. I think that would be a great pickup for Indianapolis. I could see him on the Raiders as well. But Trevor Lawrence is a special type of player. If and I want to say when the Jets get the number 1 overall pick, I would expect them to take Trevor Lawrence and move on from Sam Darnold. Trevor Lawrence is that good of a player. If anybody can save the New York Jets, it's him. Let me know what you think about Trevor Lawrence. What do you think about that segment? As you guys enjoy that segment, Trevor Lawrence versus your starting quarterback, who would I like over the next couple of years or so? All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other end of this segment, we're going to do quickly my prediction for each and every NFL 1 o'clock game and 4 o'clock game, night game, Monday night game, and I think Tuesday night game as well, technically between the Titans and the Bills. We'll predict each and every NFL game right after this short break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here. The GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. For the final segment of today's show, what I like to do each and every Sunday episode, I like to break down and predict each NFL matchup. And if you're listening to this after all the NFL games, hopefully I got some of these predictions right for you. We'll get into each and every NFL game, my prediction for each and every winner. We'll get into that stuff right now because we were running out of time. We have Panthers-Falcons at 1 o'clock. Falcons are favored. I like the Panthers to win this game by at least a field goal. Teddy Bridgewater's on a roll. I believe the Panthers have won back-to-back games. Atlanta's 0-4, one of the worst defenses in the league. On top of all that, no Julio for Atlanta, so I like Carolina to win this game by at least a field goal. We got Cardinals-Jets. This game's going to be the biggest blowout of the week. The Cardinals are absolutely going to smoke the Jets. I like them by 10 points plus. I think the Cardinals will literally win by at least a minimum of 10 points. If you're a betting man, that's what I would say. That's what I would predict. Then we have the Rams versus the Washington football team. I like the Rams to win this game big as well. Second biggest blowout, only behind the Cardinals-Jets game. The Rams are rolling to 3-1. I expect them to be 4-1 and Washington to be 1-4. The Washington football team is also not even starting Dwayne Haskins. They're starting Kyle Allen. Big win for the Rams coming up in this game. And then, of course, We have some other games as well. We have the Bengals versus the Ravens. I like the Ravens to win that game. I like everything that Joe Burrow is doing, but I think the Ravens are just a little bit too much for the Bengals to handle. Then we have Jacksonville versus Houston. I think Houston will get its first victory of the season. They just fired Bill O'Brien. I think Deshaun Watson will respond and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then we have Chiefs versus Raiders. I think the Chiefs will obviously beat the Raiders as well. I think the game will be closer than people think. I think John Gruden might give them a run for their money, but I'm still 100% taking the Kansas City Chiefs over the Raiders. Then we have Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. This is a close game. I am going to go with Pittsburgh because I don't know if Carson Wentz is fully kind of woken up from whatever nightmare he's in right now. I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers by a field goal in a very close game. Then for the 4 o'clock games, we have San Francisco versus Miami. I'm going to take San Francisco. I think the game will be closer than you think. I don't think I would take San Francisco by 8 or more points like they're favored to be. I think I would take San Francisco by a field goal to 5 points. Dolphins lose close games, and I think that'll continue. And then I think after this game, we'll fully transition into Tua Tagovailoa time for Miami. Then we have the game of the week between the Browns and the Colts. I like the Browns to win this game. I think the Colts are a good team, not a great team. I think the Browns are actually a really good team. I think they're both 3-1 teams in this game. I like the Browns to move to 4-1 and the Colts to move to 3-2. And then, of course, the final 4 o'clock window game is Cowboys-Giants. I like the Cowboys to beat the Giants. I think it'll be a blowout. Cowboys respond. Mike McCarthy gets a much-needed win, and so does Dak Prescott. And finally, the night game for tonight, Seahawks-Vikings. Pretty easy. I think you know who I'm going to say. I like Seattle to win this game and remain undefeated against Minnesota. Tomorrow night is the Monday night game. We have a great game between the Chargers and Saints. Call me crazy, but I like the Chargers. Saints are very, very inconsistent. I like what Justin Herbert is doing, what he's showing me. I think Justin Herbert gets his first career win against the New Orleans Saints on primetime. And the Tuesday night game between Buffalo and Tennessee. Close one. I'm going to go Tennessee. I'm not sold on Josh Allen. I am sold on this Tennessee defense, and I'm sold on Mike Vrabel and Derrick Henry. Give me the Titans over the Bills. All right, that's going to be my, Week 5 NFL predictions. Let me know how I did if you're listening to this after the NFL games. Hopefully, I had a winning record. We'll see how it goes. Can't wait to watch the finals game tonight. Going to be an absolutely great game, as it always is. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. Again, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Before I let you go, do not forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I have been your host, Alex Masferrer, and I will see you all in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.